A very warm welcome to IDFC First Bank presents Leaders of Tomorrow Season 13. I'm Ritwika Gupta. From food services to facility management, tonight we bring you two conversations that spotlight scale, innovation and transformation across industries. Starting with a closer look at one of India's largest domestically owned food service companies. In the first segment, we're in conversation with Sanjay Kumar, MD and CEO of Rassense. And in the second segment, we feature Major Manjit Rajain, Global Chairman of the Tenon Group of Companies. Thank you so much for joining us, Sanjay.
Thank you, Ritwika.
Now, Rassense has grown to become one of India's largest domestically owned food service companies. How did you align your strategy to achieve scale so quickly?
I think what made a difference is the fact that we had the right people, and most of the people in my leadership team had been with me before. So it was easy to build the right culture to take ownership for the vision and the objective that we mapped out. And there's always the biggest challenge is as the leader or the CEO, you might have a vision, you might have a belief, you might think certain things are possible, but at the end of the day, if you don't have the right team, then it never really gets to being realized.
Sure.
And this is where I think as an organization, Rassense was able to bring together the right leaders from across the industry and give them the cultural space which allowed them to leverage their professional skills while putting on their entrepreneurial hat.
Now, food services is a highly competitive space. What makes Rassense stand apart from global giants and local competitors, especially when serving large clients like Maruti Suzuki and Tata Motors?
I would have loved to say that it is just a competitive industry. If it was just that, it would have been much easier, our journey. It is not only competitive, it's fragmented, okay? And when an industry is fragmented, it tends to encourage disorganized players to do what it takes to secure business without having to necessarily be compliant with the regulatory environment. So the biggest challenge we faced in terms of the competitive landscape was not really around how do we work through with a better offer, a better promise, and better execution. The bigger challenge was how do we, alongside all of this, also manage the complexity that comes with the unorganized sector.
Now, from what I read, you're the only food service provider to integrate AI and IoT into your operations. Can you explain how these technologies are being used in kitchens and supply chains?
See, today, the whole wide world, anywhere you go, people will talk AI, okay? But just talking about it doesn't give a proof point that you're going to implement anything. It just demonstrates intent. What we recognize, the two biggest competitors in this industry are global multinationals whose order of magnitude global revenues is in excess of $20 billion. So our revenue typically stacks up as a rounding off error on the balance sheet. So we are not going to be able to compete on cost. We're not going to be able to compete on margins, and we cannot compete with them in terms of perception. Because India is still coming out of the colonial mindset that multinational companies are great, So that was the challenge we faced. Now, therefore, culturally, what we had to do was create a belief system in the organization that the only way we can battle this is by deploying technology. We built a real-time digital tool, which is called MRM, which basically tracks raw material receipt real time. Now imagine every day across the country, we buy perishables, we buy dry groceries, and we make fresh food. 330,000 meals every day. So just imagine the consumption of all of these categories. Today, we have a digital tool that all material receipts on any site anywhere in the country is keyed into this tool to give us real-time dashboards on material rejection.
Now, Sanjay, you also introduced an employee ownership model, making Rassense the first Indian food service company to dilute shares to employees. What drove this decision?
The reason we did this is, I live in the city of Bangalore, and I must be the millionth guy in this city to do this because every single startup in Bangalore dilutes equity to employees. Okay, so there was no rocket science in this, there was no discovery in this. The only thing that was new was the industry. Now, as you had mentioned at the beginning of this conversation, that it is very competitive, and we discussed that it's also very fragmented. Now, when it is competitive and fragmented, what happens? You have multiple acquisitions because every small company is willing to sell out, make that 100 or 150 crores, take their wealth, and the employees can look for the next job.
Right.
Since we decided we are not going to sell this business, the first thing was then to ensure that the people who grow it should get value out of it, not just those few that promote the concept.
Sanjay, delivering over 3 lakh meals daily has a huge environmental footprint. How is Rassense embedding sustainability while continuing to scale operations?
One of the things which can really help manage the impact to the environment is if you are able to source locally, because then you reduce your carbon footprint, because transportation of material across the country, largely in India at least, is mostly by road. So, as a policy, till date, there is no site where we do business where we source perishables beyond a 150-kilometer radius. In most sites, at least 75 to 80%, it will be within 50 kilometers. But that's a corporate intent. How do we instill this behavior in our employees? Now, you'll be shocked when I say this. We actually had our employees grow vegetables on the campus of one of our clients, which is VIT in Bhopal. And it created such an awareness about how water, fertilizers are used, and how much sense, we need to be sensitive to the environment when we grow vegetables. Those vegetables were cooked for the students. The students appreciated it.
And if I'm not wrong, you are also working closely with local suppliers, farmers, and ecosystem partners. In an environment of global uncertainties and macroeconomic volatility, how can larger players like Rassense support small businesses and vendors, to stay resilient and grow sustainably?
This is a very good question, particularly coming as it does at this point in time. And I really commend the farmers of this country for adopting practices which enable growing of crops, at least with lesser pesticide, one. But more importantly, the cultivation patterns, if you see, mirror local consumption behaviors. So, if there, for example, you get a lot of potato coming out of 2 or 3 states, Uttar Pradesh being one of them. So recipes in that region also then reflect what is grown there. And historically, that's how it has been. It's only now that modern farming practices have improved yields. But it has to be correlated to recipes. And this is where, for us, we have the biggest advantage because we make the recipes linked to the consumption behaviors of that area. When you make the recipes linked to the consumption behaviors in that geography, you naturally produce what people will eat there, part A, but procure from what is grown there. And for that, you need to have a process to identify which recipes which are local are being accepted because there are migrant labor as well, and then source accordingly and support those groups where it is possible in a manner that their farming practices result in better, not only yields, but also in fresher produce coming into us because it's sourced locally.
With institutional funding from Spark Capital AIF, what's next in terms of capital deployment? Are you focusing more on geographic expansion, technology enhancement, or new business verticals?
Of course, take a lot of pride and we thank Spark Capital for having taken this momentous step where formal funding has come into the food service business in this country for the first time since it became India. So that should say a lot. It's taken more than 75 years for formal capital to come into this sector. There is no other sector which can show this, rather disappointing flat. There is a lot of capital that has gone into the manpower business. Yeah. But a pure play food service company has never been able to get formal capital into its business in this country.
Finally, tell us, how do you see this sector transforming over the next 5 years?
So I think the government has a clear intent to streamline and improve governance framework so that Indian companies can do well. One of the things which can be really helpful is, alongside the GST reforms that we've just seen, if input tax is reintroduced into this sector, because that can then help defray the impact that came after the removal of input tax credit. It took away 40% of our margins. And we believe sooner or later that should happen and will happen. The second piece is, and of which I'm very supportive, is the fact that we do need agricultural reforms. If you see China, though they might be far ahead, they first took agricultural reform before they went on the path of industrialization. And that can help in consolidating land holdings to improve yields, to reduce, the production costs and make our produce, at par with what we have to then substitute by imports.
Fantastic. It's been a pleasure having you on the show, Sanjay. Thank you for joining us.
It was lovely talking to you, Ritwika. Anytime you want to taste our food, you're most welcome.
It's time for a quick break here. We'll be back shortly. Stay tuned. Welcome back to IDFC First Bank Presents Leaders of Tomorrow Season 13. In this segment, we focus on the rapid evolution of India's 2 billion facility management industry. Hrishita Kumar brings you this conversation with the Tenon Group of Companies.
Hello, sir. Thank you so much for joining us on Leaders of Tomorrow.
Thank you, Hrishita. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, the Indian facility management industry today is valued at over $2 billion US. How has it evolved over the years, from basic repairs and security to advanced automation and smart solutions?
So, Hrishita, it's quite a long story, but very interesting one. And I also learned it rather late in life because my first business was a security company, and then we subsequently established Tenon Facility Management. So I also learned it as I was building up a company. Historically, facility management did not exist in India. And if I look beyond, I would say 2002 if I look before 2002, 2003, there was no such thing called facility management. It came to us on the back of the IT boom when all the major IT and ITES companies came into the country. They were used to a facility management environment, and when they came to India, they demanded it. They also brought along with them the IPCs, the property integrated property managers, like the JLLs and CBREs and Cushmans of the world. These companies were essentially real estate transaction companies, but they also provided facility management as kind of an extension to their services. So when all these multinationals came into India, they depended on the JLLs and CBREs and Cushmans of the world to provide them professional facility management as they were used to back home, which I would say at that time was generation 2 of this business. Now, all these companies really didn't want to get their hands dirty, having large number of people on their books. So they would outsource all the services. They would go to a security company and say, "You do my security, you do my facility management, you do my cleaning, you do my hard services, soft services." That is where we got introduced into it as a security company. But then over the years, facility management evolved. So if I give you a kind of a 5,000 feet overview of what facility management looks like, it has got hard services, which is managing, maintaining, running of generators, electricals, air conditioning, which means all the M&E services. It has soft services, all the housekeeping, cleaning, horticulture, janitorial services, pantry services. It has manpower outsource services like pantry services, help desk, reception, and various other services. Now, all of these, and security, of course, one of them, which is a very critical services, and a standalone service. All of them put together become what is called facility management. Now, I have seen that evolution from the time when we used to provide basic guards, basic cleaning staff, basic housekeeping staff, to today, where everything is run on technology.
That's very insightful, sir. Now, security is one of the biggest priority for businesses today. How can outsourcing facility management help companies improve safety while also saving costs?
Globally, whenever companies want to reduce cost, they outsource. I think in 2010, there was a CEO's conference which I attended, the Forbes CEO's conference in New York, which I attended. And there were about 120 CEOs there. And they were asked the question in a questionnaire format, what would you do to reduce cost? And 85% said outsource.
Sure.
So that's an easy answer. You outsource any part of your services. You do two things. One, you are able to focus on your core business and get rid of all the noise around it. So you have somebody else do it. Two, you get specialized service providers who will deliver what you need, and they are able to advise you on what you really need. And third, of course, you save costs by not having permanent members on your team, huge payrolls, etc.
Now, Tenon Group has a strong presence in India, Singapore, and the UK. How do you adapt to the different needs of each market?
So running a business as a corporate, it's very different from India. People management in different geographies obviously is different. There are different cultures, there are different laws, there are different ways of doing things. So it's very different. So we now are present in, I think, 5, 6 countries in addition to India, Singapore, and UK. Recently, we went into Germany, which is again a learning experience. India has been a learning curve. When we entered the business, we were at, let's say, hypothetically, ground zero. And from ground zero, we have now reached a stage which I would call generation 3 of security today. We understand the culture. All of us who work here were born here. We've been brought up here. I've served with people here. That, I think, was a little easier to handle.
Now, since you mentioned India, let's talk a bit about your pan-India presence. Why do you think businesses in Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities are increasingly opting for facility management services?
It's quite simple, Rishita. So around 2003, 2004, the first wave of IT and ITES companies started coming into India. India became the BPO hub. And by 2010, we were like number one in the world where BPOs are concerned. My company, fortunately, had the privilege of being the market leader in providing security services initially to the IT and ITES companies. And subsequently, when we set up our facility management company in 2007, we also became a major player with a lot of IT and ITES companies. Now, why did all these IT, ITES companies come to India? And today, when BPO is gone and replaced by chatbots, we have other major companies which have their entire back-end operations in India, be it a Deloitte, a EY, a Boeing, Mercedes research centers. All these major companies globally have a big back office operation in India. The simple philosophy for all of them was cheaper resources, more economical operating costs, rentals were low, English speaking population, which was a great advantage. On the back of that, we got all that advantage.
Now, a CRISIL report suggests that the industry will see double-digit growth by 2025 to 26. What factors do you think are driving this growth?
Very simple answer, the country is growing. When our GDP grows, businesses grow, manufacturing grows, hubs grow. So all of that needs, if you look back, that needs facility management security. When people are growing, companies are growing, they want to maximize their profit, they outsource. When they are becoming smaller, they remodel their requirements. They want to redo their facilities. They need facility management now to help them to restructure and downsize what they had. So facility management companies are a boom bust industry. They, good or bad, they always do well. Having said that, there are many reasons why we are bound to grow at that kind of a growth rate. The first is in India, typically, if you looked at it 10 years back, I would say we had about 30% of the industry was organized sector and 70% was unorganized sector. Thanks to the improvement in technology by the government, which is you can't escape the GST, you cannot escape the employee state insurance or the provident fund net today. So it really does not pay anybody to remain unorganized. You don't have a choice. You will either be thrown out of business or you'll be prosecuted for doing something wrong. So the unorganized sector has been moving very fast into the organized sector. So today, if I look at it, I would say we are 60% plus organized in both security and facility management, and maybe 35-40% unorganized sector still remaining there. That unorganized sector is going to become organized. And that is one of the things that is pushing the growth.
Now, your journey from the army to building Tenon FM is inspiring. What are some of the key lessons you've learned along the way as an entrepreneur?
All right. So, yeah, I've had a very diverse career from the army and then briefly in the police and starting a security company. So this was, of course, a no-brainer that somebody coming from the army and then serving the police and coming from a police family from my father's side. Security was something that we were born with. We've seen it all our lives. So I set up a security company which was in line with what I'd done all my life. The good part is the army actually prepared me very well for this. What I didn't understand was probably the corporate culture. What I didn't know probably is finance and things like that, banking relationships and how you raise money and how you invest money. That I learned as I came along. But the majority of the things that were needed for my new life, the corporate life as running a security company, Army prepared me for it. The most important thing the Army prepared me and taught me was you can't do it alone. You need a team. You need people around you.
Finally, looking ahead, what is your vision for Tenon Group? Do you plan to scale your international operations further?
Quite clear, actually. We are now, so we were listed in the London Stock Exchange for the better part of 11 years. We delisted in 2019. When I listed in London, I had a problem because in those days, I was a very small company. I couldn't have listed in India. I needed a smaller stock exchange. So we went to the alternate investment market of the London Stock Exchange. That was the best place. But those days, an Indian company could not list overseas. Thanks to the new government, the current government in India, they've changed that rule. Now you can list overseas. So I had to shift my headquarters to Singapore, and the Singaporean company listed in London. In 2019, I delisted my company. I restructured my company, brought the ownership back into India. So Tenon today is an Indian multinational company which has gone overseas. The idea now is to list the company. The plan now is to list the company in India in the near future. We are planning for it. We're preparing for it. We hope to do some acquisitions before that to build up the scale.
Thank you so much, sir. This was truly an inspiring conversation. Thank you for joining us on Leaders of Tomorrow.
Thank you.
With that, it's a wrap on this edition of IDFC First Bank Presents Leaders of Tomorrow Season 13. We hope you enjoyed the episode. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.